I'm Stephanie, and let's talk books. So today I wanted to talk about one of my favorite authors, Brandon Sanderson, but I wanted to talk about some of his books that don't get a lot of love on booktube. I don't hear a lot of people talking about them, and I thought that I would share them some love. For each of these books, I am going to give a brief synopsis. I'm going to tell you why I really like it. I'm going to postulate some ideas about why I think maybe it's not quite as popular as some of his other books. And then I'm going to make a recommendation for who I think would really enjoy the books. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first book I want to talk about is Legion, The Many Lives of Stephen Leeds. This is actually one of his more recent publications. It came out just last year. So this is the lovely US edition. I also have the UK edition, which has the white, black, and pop of color design like the rest of the UK Sanderson books. Legion follows the adventures of Stephen Leeds, who is a genius who uses different personalities to learn different skills. So for example, he may have a personality who is a really good cook. He might have another one who is a martial arts expert. You might have one who is a doctor, and he uses these different personalities to learn different things and help him with his detective work. So it definitely has a very Sherlock Holmes type vibe to it, and I think that it is really interesting, and it's different from a lot of what Sanderson usually does. This is not like a big high epic fantasy story. It's set more in our world with just this one fantastical element of these different personalities that Stephen Leeds has. So one of the things that I think hurt the popularity of this book was its publication. It was originally going to be published in 3 parts, so there's part 1 and a part 2 and a part 3. And at least in the United States, after the first 2 parts were published, the 3rd part was published in the compendium. In the UK, you can still get all 3 separately, or you can get the combo edition like I have. And I feel like that kind of deterred people from reading because they're more like novellas or longer short stories on their own, and that's just not something that is quite as popular as a full book. So if you enjoyed the BBC Sherlock show, I think you would really enjoy the Stephen Leeds book. It's got a very similar vibe. We have this very intelligent individual who's out to solve a mystery, but he's got some kind of quirk to him where he doesn't quite fit in with society and play by society's rules the way that we expect. You have that kind of a character going on. Another thing that's really great about this is all of the Stephen Leeds adventures. It's complete, it's a standalone, and you're not going to be left hanging, waiting for the rest of a series to finish. So now we're going to go way back and talk about one of Brandon Sanderson's earlier works that I really love, and it is Therithmatist. I talk about this book a little bit in my book haul, but Therithmatist is a YA book by Brandon Sanderson. So this is the US edition. This is the UK cover. I vastly prefer the UK cover. I think it looks really cool and definitely stands out on the shelf more than the US cover. So in Therithmatist, there is a magic system where certain people have the ability to draw things with chalk, and those chalk's drawings will come to life and attack other chalk drawings. And the people that can use this magic system are called Therithmatists. The magic system is very math-based. It has a lot of geometry, which I think is super cool and really nerdy. And it also has a nifty school setting. So the plot of the book is that there is this kid, Joel, who is obsessed with Therithmatists and really wants to be one, but he wasn't born with the ability to use this magic. He is attending a school where they train Therithmatists, and he loves learning as much as possible as he can, and he does his own little chalk drawings even though they don't come to life. A series of kidnappings start occurring at the school, and they're these magical students are being kidnapped, and he wants to get to the bottom of this. So he and another Therithmatist student, Melody, are trying to figure out what's going on, who's kidnapping the students, and what is happening at their school. So I really love the magic system. I think it's fabulous. There are a lot of illustrations in this book that to help you visualize what's going on in the little chalk duel that they have, and I think that's really great. The story also takes place in a alternate history United States, where the United States is a group of islands instead of an entire continent. And I just found the story really interesting and engaging, and I was hooked throughout the entire thing, wanting to know what was happening, who was kidnapping all the students. So one of the reasons I think why this book is not as popular as it could be is that, unfortunately, it definitely has a cliffhanger ending. When Brandon wrote this book, he anticipated writing a sequel, and I do believe that he still plans to write a sequel, but it's one of the sequels that's been pushed off a lot. And unlike something like Elantris or Warbreaker, where you can just read the first book and have no clue that there's going to be a sequel, this book definitely leaves you wanting more and knowing that there's another chapter to the story that you don't have. So I think that's really unfortunate, and is probably one of the things that keeps a lot of people from picking this book up, but I still do highly recommend it. Now, this is a YA book, and it does kind of tend towards the younger end of YA. So if you have someone you know who likes Harry Potter, I think they would really like Therithmatist, especially with that sort of magical school setting. If that's something you really like, I would definitely recommend picking this one up. Alright, the last underrated Brandon Sanderson book I wanted to talk about is actually a series, and it is the Reckoner series. So the first book in the series is Steelheart, and this is the UK edition. And here is book 2 of the US edition. I don't have a US copy of Steelheart, but that is the first one. So the Reckoner series is also set in sort of an alternative United States, where 10 years ago an event happened and a whole bunch of people started to manifest these superhero powers. Unfortunately, they all turned evil, and we are now living in a world that is run by supervillains. So the story of Steelheart follows a teenage boy named David who is out to take down these superheroes known as epics, because one of them murdered his father when he was young, and he is really interested in joining up with this rebel group called the Reckoners, which is a group of normal everyday people who are trying to take out the epics. Each of the epics have a weakness, and so one of the ways that you can defeat an epic is to study them, learn their weakness, and then exploit it. So just like Superman has kryptonite, if you find out the epic's weakness, then you are able to take them out and free humans in that area from the tyranny of these epics. So one of the reasons I think that the Reckoners series is not as well known as some of Brandon's other works is that the main character is a teenage boy. And unfortunately, with the current YA market, it is very much aimed at teenage girls and also women who are kind of in that younger adult area, 20s to 30s. Now, of course, anybody can read a book out of the YA genre, no matter their age or gender, but I feel like because of the way that the market is set up, a lot of young teenage boys will skip right from middle grade into adult fantasy because that's where they find more male protagonists, and they won't even bother looking in the YA section. And then a lot of adult readers don't like to go to the YA section because they don't like the mainstream trends for YA fantasy. So this book kind of gets lost a little bit in the middle. Now, I think that this series is a really important addition to the YA genre because of that male protagonist. I think that Brandon did a really great job of making David seem like a very normal, typical teenage boy. So he struggles with a lot of things that your typical 17-year-old boy would deal with, and I feel like that is an area that is not explored very well in either the young adult or adult fantasy genre, and so I think there's definitely a place for this, and I would love for more male authors to break out and write some YA fantasy novels where we have more characters like David, because I really feel like this is an underrepresented area. So I'm going to recommend this book to young adult males in particular because of the male protagonist. I think it's really fun. As a woman, I enjoyed it, so I think ladies could enjoy it too, but I think it would be a really great series if you know someone who is looking for that YA male protagonist. I'm also going to recommend this series to anyone who enjoyed Marissa Meyer's Renegade series. I'm currently working through that series, and I feel like it has a lot of the same vibe with the superhero kind of dystopian future thing going on, and I think that you would, if you enjoyed that, you would really also enjoy the Reckoners series. So those are some recommendations to check out some underrated Brandon Sanderson books. I hope you really enjoyed hearing about these books. Let me know down in the comment section below if any of these sounded interesting to you, or if you read any of them, what did you think? Also, if you have an underrated favorite that you think deserves more love on booktube, go ahead and leave me a comment down in the comment section. Let me know. I would love to add some more books to my TBR.